Let's bow down to greatness, ladies and gentlemen. So much going on in the United Kingdom. And a man who would have an opinion on most things, political columnist from The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. Very, very warm welcome to our new Drive Show and Talk. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm all right. I managed to sleep more now, my friend, so it's good. Can we start on a serious note, Trevor? What we saw in Hainault this morning and what is playing out, the death of a 14-year-old boy, as I said, 4 others seriously injured. I don't understand, and when you do a show like this, you know this, and you throw out, is Britain lawless? And people say, oh, you're going over the top. The most frightening thing for me about today, Trevor, is that this is becoming the norm, and I start to despair. What about you?
I do, and what we've got is copycat killing, haven't we, really? This is spreading all over the world, but what really shocked me was when it was in my adopted country in Australia. I thought Sydney would be the last place you'd expect mass murder with a stabbing fiend running around a shopping mall, where my family, oddly enough, were walking and shopping only the previous day. So it brings it home to you how close this is. I mean, I also know people who live in Hainault, and I was terrified of picking up the next clip on this and finding that one of them was involved in this. It comes very close to all of us once these things spread out, and it's so inexplicable that people, because they're disgruntled or depressed or anxious, decide to take a 2-foot-long samurai sword and rush into the street and start stabbing people, including the 13-year-old who was stabbed to death.
Do you fear, and again, one has to be careful, obviously, but I think it's important to be honest as well. Do you fear for our streets? Do you believe the police have lost control? We had Peter Blexley on, interestingly, earlier, and we were talking about numbers, OK? We can look back at Theresa May and, you know, the dropping of policemen and women on the streets. We can talk about intel, we can talk about how police works. But he was sort of saying, Trev, from the top, the ideology is different. You know, they've dropped metropolitan force, police force, because that might upset people, that the very people at the top have watered down. And I was saying that when I was growing up, you were scared of the coppers. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore, mate.
That's absolutely true. And I think that it all began with the Commissioner Blair, who began this sort of softening of the idea that they are actually police officers and a police force dealing out justice, or at least acting as the key in between justice and the public. They don't do this anymore. You never see them, and when you do, you have little faith in the fact that they could even run more than 100 yards to chase a fugitive if indeed they had to. And, you know, I think that the mayor here has to take a big slice of the responsibility. His idea that stop and search is a fundamentally racist act is more than preposterous. It's lethal. And I think that if we had more archways for people to walk through when they were in the streets, I mean, we've got to this point. It's an appalling thing to advocate that we have to actually be security checked as we go about our daily business. But it's reached that point, and until you really do crack down and make it clear that these things cannot be tolerated, must not happen, then I think it will continue and get worse.
I completely agree. Keep your thoughts coming, my friends, by the way. 0344 499 1000 on the state of lawless Britain. Trev, can I bring it on to, I mean, I literally, the hapless Home Office, I can only best describe this as I've been trying to describe it all day, which is somebody in the Home Office decided that they needed to put some people on a plane to Rwanda. So what they thought was, we'll go to a detention centre and get some... Oh, there aren't any people there. So what we'll do is we'll send a few emails out, 5,000. We'll try and get some people to come to the detention centre, with no incentive, by the way, because they've disappeared in our society, to come to the detention centre so we can then take them from the detention centre to the boats. I mean, you and I have talked repeatedly about the Home Office being not fit for purpose. You have been the chief political correspondent for The Sun. Can I ask you a question? Why has no politician, since John Reed said 18 years ago it was rubbish, why has no politician grasped the nettle and gone, we've got to do something about a department that is failing in almost every single part of what it's supposed to do? I don't get it.
Well, I think that the big problem is that as far as the Home Office is concerned, and some Home Secretaries, and certainly some senior cabinet figures, believe that the Home Office is fit for purpose. It has become a social service. It's a sort of enabling operation for people to come into the country, welcome with open arms, give them £49 a week and a free home, and then when they're told that they might be sent off to the lovely land of Rwanda, didn't simply abscond or go to Ireland, where I think another of my adopted countries. I mean, it really is something to see these pop-up tents all the way down the road with allegedly an open latrine at the corner. I mean, this is just shocking and bewildering and unnecessary.
To me, you know, we can bring both of these things into one, and I suppose I would be patriotic, and I suppose everybody knows I'm a royalist, but I'm beginning. I mean, I said something yesterday. I just had a daughter, as you know, 13 weeks ago, and you look at her sometimes, and I start to say to myself, what country, and not even world, what have I brought you into? We're not, you know, the police are running, you know, it seems more of a I want to be popular campaign than catching criminals. People are wielding knives on the street. I mean, we've talked before. I was brought up to believe that, say, a Tory government would be about low taxation, strong borders, a strong military, a police force that was tough on law and order. We've got the highest taxation in 70 years, immigration out of control, and people running up and down our streets with knives, killing 14-year-old boys. What would you say to people who probably get to a point where they go, what the hell's happened to Great Britain, Trev? What would you say?
I'd say I agree with them. I mean, I feel this every week when I write my column. I have to restrain myself from being really angry, although that's the way I feel about this. I mean, I too have children and grandchildren aged 15 to 21. And I worry about them going out at night. I certainly worry about the two girls. I worry about the boy. And I think every parent and every grandparent in the country is feeling the same way, but particularly in London, where I think there's an atmosphere of menace and assertiveness, which is new, and there's a sort of whiff of aggression, and you can't get away from that.
Is it more police, or does it change in theory from the top, in your opinion? Do we need more police men and women? Do we need to be stronger? Do we need to make the punishment greater? What about, you know, you talked about stop and search. We have to be careful because there's an election soon before we talk about individuals. But you know, you're right. People have said stop and search is racist. They point at the fact that young black men and women are stopped. But to me, it shouldn't be about the colour of your skin. If you've got a knife, whether you're white or black or whatever, you should be stopped. And I would literally, but they'll say to me, there's no prisons. I would find them guilty and put them in the clink straight away. If you're carrying a knife, what are you carrying a knife for? Self-protection?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of the things you mentioned. It's a better leadership. I mean, basically everything is down to leadership and management, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it's the government, whether it's a business, whether it's even a domestic household. It's a matter of instilling the belief that you owe your country the duty of being properly behaved. I mean, there should be a civic culture in which we all feel responsible for one another and caring for one another. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Maybe not going around putting your arms around people, but certainly not stabbing them, certainly not shoplifting and rampaging around supermarkets. And, you know, the way people drive in the streets these days, completely ignoring the basic rules of the road, some of them causing dreadful accidents, and the cycles who jump the electric bikes, which are really motorbikes, jumping there, they're all ingredients in this particular malaise where people are simply abandoning the borders of good behaviour.
And actually that's something, you know, my kids, one of them laughs at me. Decency, you know, humility, good behaviour, but we've become too scared, Trev. I mean, I have a friend who opened a door for a woman the other day and she shouted at him in front of his colleagues, and he said, that's what I was brought up to do, but she accused me of making her feel like she was a second-class citizen. People on the streets just behaving irresponsibly, no respect. Listen, could talk to you forever, my friend. We're really pleased to have you on Drive Time, and hopefully we'll get him back next week. Trevor Kavanagh, political columnist for The Sun.